Hello and welcome back to Let's Go Sailing. In this episode we're going to be doing the boat trailer and the entire setup that I've made for it, how it's changed since when it was last used with Masumi, my old boat. And if you haven't checked out that episode, go check it out because you'll see how when I got this trailer and what I did to it then to make it work with Masumi. And now we're making it work with Meraki, and I'll show you what I've done and I'll show you how I've done it. Now the methodology behind this trailer setup is I've got a car trailer for towing with, and that never gets dunked in the water, and most of the time it's going to be salt water, so definitely don't want this going into the sea. So I can pull up cars, swap this off, I can drop the boat off of this, so I can easily move the boat around when it's sat on its dolly. Now I picked up the dolly from Masumi originally, and I believe before it had about a 24-foot boat on it, so we're well under what it is, but I've done a lot of modifications because it was in dire need. Right, we'll start with the setup overall. So you can see I've got the car trailer there, and then with the dolly sat on top, and effectively what happens is I've got a winch up front and it rolls it off the car trailer down the ramps and into the water, and that saves me from getting the car trailer in the water. And then also I can put the boat wherever I want, I can transport it very easily, and don't have to pay any harbour fees in the marinas and all of that. So I just pay for a slipway, and I can go anywhere in the country and launch, and it's quite flexible. I can launch on quite a few different kinds of slipway, which is handy. Now let's go over some of the modifications that I've done. Now first off, we'll start with the winch setup that I've got. This is upgraded from the one previously that I used from Masumi, because that was at its limit with Masumi and I didn't want to have a limit with this one. So on the last one we had a very tiny winch. I'll show you a picture of that. And then now I've picked up one of these bad boys, and I think it's rated to 6 tons or thereabouts. It's wire cable. I'm tempted to switch to like a synthetic, but we'll see how long this lasts. I'll keep a close eye on it. But that just hooks up straight to the eye at the front of the trailer, runs into this. You've got guides here that spin and feed that into the drum. And then I've got, this is a wireless system, but you can plug in a remote. And I've got these power leads with an Anderson plug. Definitely recommend an Anderson plug for anything like this. And then on the back of Brutus, my tow rig, I have another Anderson plug which hooks directly up to the starter battery, which is how you want to run it really. And I can just plug in when I get to the slip, and then wind it up when I don't need it, and wind up again. Now it's got a release here which I can clutch out and just pull the wire out really fast if I want to, and lock it up. And for fitting it, I've welded up a support bar which I bolted in, and then welded a bar to this because I've mounted this edge on the strong bit of the front of the trailer, and bolted that in. And so I've done a little thing to stop it twisting upwards when it's pulling. So this has worked a treat. Welded all that in, and also for anti-theft, because this is, someone's going to want to steal this. They're going to see it, even though it's got the cover on it, they know exactly what it is, and they'll be like, yeah, I want that. So I've welded the nuts. I don't think well, if I ever want to take it off, it's going to be a right pain in the arse, but we bolted it down. I've welded the nuts top and bottom so you can't get it off all the way along. I've also welded the nuts for this on the underside, if you can see underneath there. I've welded them up, and then I've sprayed it all to protect it, so this ain't going anywhere. Next on the modification list is the wheels and tires. I had to modify the hubs and knuckles with welding studs with a bearing that goes along with it, so I can fit these wheels. These wheels and tires are off a Mini Cooper, like an original, which is pretty cool and easy to get hold of. Big steel rims, and they've been working perfectly fine, perfect size, because you don't want to go with a massive wheel because you want to keep it low to the ground as possible. You want rubber, because before these were fitted with wheelbarrow wheels just resting on a big 1-inch stud with a pin through it, and it had running grooves in it, so I had to change all of that completely. So I put these bearings in, that's front and back as well. So the front is the steering, the back is just bearings. So we've got the knuckle in here, which we've had to make up. I've made this big stainless steel pin with the weld-on washer. I think it's covered with a bit of grease, so it's all a bit messy, but I don't know, you can get much better than that. Works perfectly. There's not much play in it when you're moving it around. There's a little bit of toe out in the front, so both will slightly poke out, but we've managed to adjust that from what the original steering system was, because I've gone a little bit crazy on this system. And if you can see underneath there, I've got a steering rack out of a car. I need to tie up that hose a little bit better with a zip tie onto the other lines, but I just sealed that round so it doesn't leak any fluid, and I don't think there's any fluid in there. It's dry at the minute, but no, well, this isn't like it's being driven around the world. It's literally being backed off a trailer in a straight line almost most of the time. But you can see I've made a plate on the other side back there. So we've got a plate there that I can bolt the rack to. Then I've got a bolt up here which bolts the rack in. And you can see down here that I've welded on and shortened the knuckles. I might get the right size ones when I get round to it, but for now they seem to work and haven't broken. But it's easily fixable on the slip if I need to, if I do break one, but I doubt I'll break one because I've welded it up pretty well. But the idea between this is, because on the old setup I had like a little bar between these 2 points, these two bits of angle, a bar that I had to turn by hand, and yeah, that was not the best setup because you had to go in front of the trailer when you're setting up to get it off the trailer and bring it back on, so you had to get in front to steer it, which is a little bit sketchy. Didn't like that at all. So removing that entire system was a good idea. So we've went with a steering wheel setup. This is taken off the same car, and I'd made this series of joins. I managed to keep this as once an extending steering wheel mechanism. I managed to zip tie it on here, and 2 bolts with a bent piece of bar here, a threaded bar, bend that round, that clamps it on real tight, so there's no movement in this at all. Can't even move it. But then it runs down here with a couple of UJs, and then I've welded this shaft shorter so it fits perfect, and now that entire setup works perfectly. Doesn't get any better than that. This is the dream setup, offset to the side of the trailer so that I can actually steer it safely. I can stand off to the side, steer it with the wireless remote from the winch, back it down and up, steer it effortlessly. It's not really heavy, it's super light, and I can steer that so easily. Also, because of these well, boat supports, they move and articulate with the height difference. This extending joint on the actual steering wheel shaft is good because I can actually move these in and out if I wanted to, but I mean, it's a build kill, so I don't really need them. They're just there for guiding the boat on. Now I've got to put the one on the other side still. Now underneath the boat, I've welded on these bits of angle in the upright position, which are just off the keel section. The boat needs to be moved over that way a little bit, but I didn't have them on when I was in the water last. I've got these bits of wood here which basically run up on the other side of these bits of angle to guide it in and keep it dead centered. So that's good. We've also got these plates that I had to weld on, so I've been welding. You can see them welds there. So that's what I did with the welder, and also these welds up here. You can see they're quite good welds, good penetration through both bits of metal. So for all the welding I've done on the trailer, I've used this welder here. Now it's a cheap MIG welder, and it runs flux cord or gas. I've been using flux cord because it's cheap and easy, because you go through these bottles like no tomorrow. And you can see I've got a massive spool up on there. Probably went through one entire reel of that, doing all the welding on the trailer, and you'll see you've seen all the welds that I've done on it. And you get a simple gun, just spools it out, pull the trigger, spools it out at the end. not the best gun, it gets caught up sometimes, but I've found you can get smaller reels, but using the bigger reel actually helps because it's not so tightly bound, so it doesn't want to twist up when it goes through the feed. Because basically you got a little bearing here that squeezes up, and then there's a motor in there that actually spins a wheel and feeds the wire out, and that's what gets you your gun. You've got your speed adjustments, power settings. So on the thicker stuff, like the plates for the bottom of the trailer where the boat actually, the 2 keels sits on, I was probably welding at a 5 or a 6 with the feeding quite high, just to get it to make good penetration through both bits of metal. But because I was welding to 2 different thicknesses, you've got to be careful that you don't burn through one side and not penetrate enough on the other side. So I had to be careful of that. Now this welding mask, it's auto dimming. So on the side, normally it's battery powered, but normally you can see until it senses the light difference from when you start welding, and then it dims it, which is handy when you're trying to line up your shots until you get started. But this is a cheapo, probably about 30 quid, so not too expensive there. And then another thing I recommend is weld through primer. This stuff's brilliant. Spray it on before you weld, spray everything with it. Then when you get started welding, it'll weld through this, as it says. And then you can actually, it like protects it, so it's like preventing rust. So when you weld, you've actually painted beforehand to any areas that you can't get to after the fact you've welded, so you know it's protected. And they're very thick plates, hold the weight of the boat, don't actually bend in there, because the boat weighs about a ton, just over a ton. I think it's 1.2, so not too much weight really. I've also added these guides, these galvanized guides from a bit of sheet that I had, bent them round so that it actually feeds the keels in and onto the boat trailer. Because when I did it test without this after the first sail, I can actually, it was a bit tricky lining the boat up. I think I brought one of the keels in this side and just scratched a bit at the front, so I had to touch that up a little bit. But now I've got these guides, I should be able to get it straight in. This is another thing, quite easy to make up. Two self tappers here, 2 self tappers here, and I think I may have put one underneath there, but these are bent out and they should serve their purpose quite well. On the ramps for my trailer, I've actually put some grip tape diagonally across to give because otherwise it's metal, just galvanized metal, which isn't super grippy. So sometimes when I had my old winch set up with Misumi and I had the rubber tires on, and everything was getting a little wet because the winch was slightly offset of where I could mount it on the trailer, so I could only mount it to the side, and that meant that it wanted to pull the trailer slightly to the side, which meant it was sliding on the ramps a little bit, so I had to be careful with that, try and counter steer it. But now I put this tape on and now the winch is centered with the trailer, I don't have that problem at all now. Now in terms of strapping the boat down, for the trailer itself, I've got 4 of these straps which hook onto the tires and secure the trailer to the big trailer. And then in terms of the boat, you've got 2 straps that run up to the cleats at the back, of the boat. That holds the boat from going backwards, and it also holds it down. They have to be on every time I pull it up on the slip. So as soon as the boat comes out of the water, those go on, and then also 1 strap on the front goes on. I think these are 2 because they're run over the top, but at least 1 strap goes on for when I'm bringing it onto the trailer. That holds the front down when I'm going up the ramps. So that's the strapping for when I'm bringing it out of the water. And then when I'm strapping onto the trailer, I do the wheels up with those straps, and then we've got these straps already. But then I add on a strap on the front and a strap on the rear for the boat, which hold it to the actual trailer, because it reduces the amount of bounce you get with the trailer and the boat. With the tires, you get a little bit of flex, and then the trailer also has a little bit of flex when you're going down the road. So with these hook type ratchet straps, they like to jump out. So I hooked it onto the side over here, and the trailer twisted, that slacked off the ratchet strap, and it just jumps off. So you've got to be watching for that. Ideally I go into these little triangle ones because they never really come out of there. All these U-shaped ones are pretty good, but ideally the triangle ones. I've also got these stoppers that came with the trailer, and they're really handy because I can position it in the right place, so I get a good weight distribution on the trailer, because you want slightly more of the weight on that axle than on that axle. So you've got a slightly higher nose weight on that end of the trailer, so that you've got a bit of weight on the rear axle, but not too much that the front axle start to lift. And having the air suspension so it balances it all is a dream. Don't like the springs on the Land Rover, so air suspension is the way, so it keeps it all level and stable and controlled. But having a nose weight is definitely important on the trailer, otherwise you'll get fishtailing and tank slappers everywhere. Land Rover, best thing, tows 3.5 ton. This trailer's rated to 3.5 ton. The boat's maybe 1.2 ton. This trailer setup, I'm not too sure, haven't weighed it, but I'm guessing it's about 0.5 ton, I'm guessing roughly. And then the weight of the trailer is 700 kilograms, so in those ballparks, so I'm well under the limit, and I'm good to tow with that thing, and it's dead easy to get it down to the coast for a sail. Right, now that we've gone over the boat trailer itself and how that all works, we'll go over the car now. So the modifications I've done to Brutus, as you can see, aptly named Brutus, I've got some LED lights mounted on the back, switchable, so they light up the entire trailer and the boat when I'm working on it. Now I've also fitted a reversing camera, but not for parking, more for lining up the hitch to the trailer, because you're going to need a lot of practice to get it up, and most of the time you won't even get it close. You have to jump out, look, and then readjust at least once. But fitting this camera, night vision camera as well, I can just back up first time, and because I've got air suspension on this truck, I can just drop it down, the car down, and then go right underneath the ball and then raise it up. So after painting Meraki in last week's episode, I put Meraki on the boat trailer and moved her up next to my shed. This was the first time putting Meraki on the trailer, and she fit first time with all those modifications, so it's just a case of putting her up onto the trailer and bringing her up to the shed. And that allowed me to clean up the mess that I left for maybe a year's worth of work and get her ready for her first sail. Now in the coming episodes of Meraki, I'm going to do rigging in the next episode, and then we're going to get into getting it ready for the first sail, which went on with Sam. That was a good time, I'll tell you about that. But lots of things coming. I've got a few reviews and testing out a few things. I've got a new drone, so I can film with that, and that's going to be epic. Get some good sailing shots. It's got tracking on it. But yeah, lots of good things to come on this channel. So subscribe and like, and leave a comment down below, because I do get back to you. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.